Thank you so much, Isabella. That was beautiful. Good morning, friends. I'm Karen Mazzata. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Huntington's virtual Sunday service. It's always good to be together. We are streaming live from multiple locations, so please be patient with any technical mishaps you might see or hear. Remember, directly following service that we have a virtual fellowship hour. The Zoom link for the fellowship hour no longer exists. You just need to stay online, stay on the service, and it will automatically go into fellowship hour. It's like walking through the doors of the fellowship with your and going to get a cup of coffee. As easy as that. If you are new to our congregation and want to speak with someone to learn more about us, please contact our office administrator. That's Lauren Knoll at office@uufh.org. If you have a pastoral matter, you can always contact our minister, the Reverend Jude Geiger, at minister@uufh.org. Please know that whoever you are, whomever you love, and wherever you are in your life's journey, you are welcome here. One quick announcement. Please join us this Thursday evening at 5 p.m. for our extra special Christmas Eve service. It'll be a combined virtual youth pageant and contemplative service this year, including 8 carols by our fabulous UUFH choir and many appearances by our children and youth. At the end of the service, we will also host a cookie shower, as in the past, but this year it will be virtual. So please join us. That's 5 p.m. Thursday, Christmas Eve. The link for that is on the website, in the e-blasts, on the Facebook page. It's everywhere. You can't miss it. We hope to see you there. Today's service will be led by our wonderful UUFH minister, the Reverend Jude Geiger. Now I invite you to settle into your bodies, quiet your minds as we breathe deep together and settle into our time of worship. Please join me in saying our mission statement. The words will be on the screen. In religious community, we nurture our individual spirits through caring for one another and helping to heal the world. Please join me in singing our affirmation.
Good morning, everyone. We are lighting our chalice and our Advent candles for the fourth week of Advent. For us, our fourth week of Advent is waiting for the arrival of love in the world again. The words for our lighting is by the Reverend Elizabeth Strong, "The light for everyone who comes into the world." Reverently, I offer this symbol of our hope and high intent. Reverently, I bequeath this flame to you. This is the light that is lit for everyone who comes into the world. Bear this light to others one by one. Let the flame go from life till all is lit with its warmth. Tell that the light means wisdom. Tell that the light means kindness. Tell that the light means understanding. Tell that the light means tolerance. And tell that the light means sacrifice. Tell that the light is a vision of a fairer world. Tell that this light that is lit for everyone who comes into the world. Welcome, everyone. Our story today, the shortest day, It's written by Susan Cooper and illustrated by Carson Ellis. It's a story about Yule. And the drawings on here are gorgeous. So the shortest day came, and the year died. And everywhere, down the centuries of the snow-white world, came people singing, dancing to drive the dark away. They lighted candles in the winter trees. They hung their homes with evergreens. They burned beseeching fires all night long to keep the year alive. And when the New Year's sunshine blazed awake, they shouted, reveling. Through all the frosty ages, you can hear them, echoing behind us. Listen. All the long echoes sing the same delight, the shortest day as promise wakens in the sleeping land. They carol, feast, give thanks, and dearly love their friends, and hope for peace. And so do we here now, this year and every year. Welcome Yule. From the very beginning, our lives have been cyclical. All the solstices, the sun reaches its highest or lowest point in the sky, giving us the longest or the shortest day of the year. At the equinoxes, day and night are almost equal. Spring equinox, summer solstice, autumn equinox, winter solstice. Round and round they go. If you live on a planet that circles the sun, your time is governed by the patterns of light and darkness, summer and winter, warmth and cold, and of course, life and death. Once our forebears learned to farm, they planted and harvested at the equinoxes, but it was the solstices that caught their attention, the extremes. They watched their days shrink from the bright abundance of high summer to the bleak, dark cold of winter, and they invented rituals to make sure the light would come back again, to bring the new day, the new year, the rebirth of life. The rebirth rituals have become traditions that we celebrate, whether or not we remember where they came from. Some of them are so old that only their monuments remain. On the morning of the winter solstice at the great earthwork Newgrange in County Meath, Ireland, the day's first beam of sunlight shines in through a passage that Neolithic people built there 5,000 years ago to catch it. And for 17 minutes, a dark room deep within is filled with the sunshine of the shortest day. It's a universal impulse, the celebration of light as a symbol of continuing life. The Yule and the evergreens of the poem we just heard come from Northern Europe, but the candles in those Christmas trees belong to the same family as the menorah candles of Hanukkah or the oil lamps of Diwali. Christianity and many other faiths share their intention. They're the lights of hope, reaching for the triumph of good over evil.
The Tie Tack by Reverend Gordon McKeeman. There are many relics in our home, objects to which important memories are attached. Each recalls some journey, event, or person that is part of your life's experience. They're precious on that account. Religious objects that summon up powerful recollections. One of my favorites is my tie tack. It's an opal full of fiery iridescence. The tie tack was an unexpected gift. Its former owner, the donor, came out of the church's worship service on Sunday, and as I greeted him, I noticed the tie tack he was wearing. "What a beautiful opal," I exclaimed to him. On the spot, he took it off and gave it to me. I was delighted and chagrined. I took off my own tie tack, a UU flaming chalice, and gave it to him. It was far from an equal exchange. But more important, what he did in that fleeting moment was very typical of this man. He is a person of whom it would be said, without exaggeration, he would give you the shirt off his back. He lived quite an ordinary life. He was a salesman of an advertising novelties. So he spent much of his time traveling from client to client. He spent a significant portion of his driving time thinking of ways to improve the community. He could be counted upon to suggest some modest and simple change that would make a positive and a very real difference in people's lives. Some of his ideas were real winners, saving much public money and touching many lives with joy and opportunity. My life was one of those. One of my joys associated with wearing a necktie is to put on my tie tack. I have quite a few of them, but the opal is always my first choice. It's a ritual. I put it on and remember the man who gave it to me, and I resolved to find in this day some opportunity to continue what was his real life's work, doing something simple, modest, and useful to improve the life of the community. Over the many years I've worn my tie tack, many people have admired it, and I have told the story of my acquisition of it many times, of what it means to me. Someday I know that I too will give it away, along with its story. Meanwhile, I keep wearing it, and it keeps reminding me of its meaning in my life. Reflecting on one's relics now and then is a useful spiritual discipline, remembering the events, the persons, the occasions, when ordinary things were somehow transformed into religious objects. All around us are reminders of the people whose touch was a blessing, a balm, an invitation, a beckoning to be a better person. My tie tack does much more than hold my tie. It also holds me to my sense of purpose as a person. Now I invite you to sing Spirit of Life. Following the song, we'll enter us into a time of silence and then prayer. As you participate at home, remember it's not about the perfection of silence, but the intention. Join with me now in singing. Words will be in the chat. No, they won't.
Spirit of life, God of many names, source of love. We gather in this bright midwinter, grateful for the blessings we have been graced with. Help us to center ourselves this hour with our whole soul. May the spirit of this time bring us to a place of rest where rest is hard to find, and help us to find a place of action where inspiration has dwindled. We come together as community to inspire one another for the ministry of hope, of love, of dedication. Mother of peace, take us by your hand and lead us as we travel through our days and years. May we be a beacon of compassion in a world that is so full of struggle. As another year comes to close, may we reflect on the lessons we have come our way, change the things we must, and appreciate all the good in our lives. We especially hold in our hearts Susan Rizak and her family. Her father, Joseph Pomes, was in hospice and died on Monday, December 14th. The family will have a private memorial service this Monday. Cards and emails to the family are welcome. We pray for strength for her family and that they know the love of this fellowship. We invite the gathering to lift up the names of those we wish to hold in all our hearts this hour. Jeff and Jessica, Susan Rizak and her family, Naomi, Bill and Mary, Don and Sue, Lauren's mom and dad, Catherine and Gary. Happiest of birthdays to Lisa Burby. A lot of those in the chat. Donna and Allison, Jeffrey and Arlene, Lorraine and Tony, Noah, Diane, David, Dan and Kate, Dawn, the homeless, Lenny, Connie and Rose, Jackie and Wyatt, Joe, and the Kellogg family, Vince, Genevieve, Roz, Linda, Alice and Dick Richardson, Taritha's niece, Vonnie, Susan Carbiner, for all these names spoken aloud and for all those that are written on the tablets of our hearts, we pray. In the Speed family. Oof. So my household, I grew up in both of us grew up in households that were put up so many seasonal decorations. My mom was really, God bless her, intense. Every season, all the decorations we put up. So, Christmas would look like Christmas, and New Year's would look like New Year's, and Valentine's Day would look like Valentine's Day, and March was St. Patrick's, and Easter, and on and on. All the different red, white, and blue would transition from Memorial Day to 4th of July to Labor Day. And it was just, it was a norm. So we kind of follow up with that in our own lives. And we usually put up winter holiday decorations the day after Thanksgiving in our own home. But with the seriousness of the year, we didn't manage to decorate for the holidays. Our hearts were just not in it. It has me wondering now that we're a few days away from the end of the year, what else comes with putting that little inner kid of ours to bed for the time with all the seriousness of the adulting of the world? Does a certain part of us go to sleep as well? Do we lose our sense of wonder? Do we close ourselves a bit too much to everyday magic and awe? Do our views and perceptions become too jaded, too practical? I mean, COVID is kind of putting us all in that mindset, that everything we do needs to be starchly useful. I think it's the fastest way to let bone-weary exhaustion set it, and we let it this year. Don't blame ourselves for it, but we did in our household. Exhaustion in the existential sense, tiredness with the passing of the seasons and cycles rather than rejuvenation from the rebirth of times and holidays, which is what Yule is about. The shortest day or the longest night, it's watching for the energy to come back, the spirit to come back in our lives. In traditional earth-based spirituality, we're crossing into Yule, the winter solstice. It's a holiday that directly faces that perennial existential challenge. It's a time of reflection, of new beginnings, matching the symbolic birth of the sun as our daylight hours only become longer and longer with each passing day following Yule. It's a holiday that asks us to consider what we hope to rebirth in our lives. It asks us to rebirth our spirit in the face of the cold, long night. It has different connotations this year with COVID. It's maybe even more pressing. I'd like to share with you a poem I've shared with you once before, some years back, by a friend of mine who's an award-winning artist as well. She wrote it for Yule. I find it to speak really well to the challenge this season poses for so many in the face of all the merry and the cheer. It's entitled The Bare Bones of Winter. It's written by Elizabeth Ludwig. Out in the darkest night, the longest dark, appear the whitest stars against a black sky, joining the moon in seasonal ritual of shadow casting on the untouched snow. Magically they manifest, silhouettes of skeletons that shiver with the wind's chill. To the maple, I want to offer my warm coat. and to the sycamore, the linden, the oak, come follow me. My door opens to the bare bones of winter, but unforeseen enters the evergreen, clothed in angelic light, greeting reverence with the promise of rebirth. I'll put a link to her artwork in the chat later. The trees that once again are holding on to their leaves as I look out my window this year tenaciously, that seems to be happening more and more these days, are now, most of them are now just bare bones outside our windows and along our walks. If we could but give them our coats to keep warm against the chill. Which among us this year relate more to the bare trees than the charitable, jolly old traveler with arms full of generosity? Have we held on long enough to our last vestige of yellow and orange, or is a silhouette an all too familiar feeling come December for some of us? This poem gives me a new sense of the evergreen, the Christmas tree. To be fair, it's less new than a better pointing back to a very ancient meaning. It reminds us there's another spirit we can clothe ourselves with. There's a way to feel full beneath the wheeling of the seasons, a lit path to rediscover awe and reverence. It shines hidden behind the packages, the obligations, the commercials, the packed Home Depots and Targets and Barnes & Noble, even these days. We make a practice of bedecking the greens in the halls and with festive and color and light to make certain we remember to find a place for awe and wonder in our everyday spaces, to craft rooms where we can once more fa la la, lest we forever ho-hum. We do this in community because every year some of us will be able to fa la la, while some others would only be able to mutter softly the ho-hum. So we failed to decorate this year, but we're planning on making a trip to an outdoor garden to pick up some small evergreens that we can plant outside in pots and maybe put some lights around them for the rest of the winter. It's never too late to create little spaces of fa la la. And I'm going to put in the chat now a link to Elizabeth's artwork, but we're going to hear a musical piece from the Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Molly Hirsch Gordon. We've heard a lot of her writing over the last year or two in our services, and now we'll get to hear her singing. She's adapting a traditional Christmas song to Yule.
O holy darkness loving womb, who nurtures and creates, sustain us through the longest night with dreams of open gates. We move inside to mystery that in our center dwells, where streams of richest beauty flow from sacred living wells. Creative darkness, closest friend, you whisper in the night. You calm our fears as unknown paths surprise us with new sight. We marvel at your bounty, your gifts so full and free, unfolding as you waken us to new reality. O holy night of deepest bliss, we celebrate your power. Infuse us with your energy that brings our seeds to flower. The voice out of the darkness excites our warmest zeal to bring together dark and light, true holiness reveal. Oh, come to us, Sophia, your image black and fair stirs us to end injustice and the wounds of earth repair. The treasures of your darkness and riches of your grace inspire us to fulfill our call, our sacredness embrace.
That was so beautiful. This month's split plate is High High, the Huntington Interfaith Homeless Initiative, a Huntington-wide effort to address homelessness right here in our community. Through the efforts of High High in conjunction with the Suffolk County Family Service League, nightly food and shelter provided to men in need from December through March. Many of you have volunteered for High High before and know how important this service is. This year, due to COVID, High High looks very different. Only one house of worship, Gloria Dei, will be housing the men. However, there is now an even greater need for funding them than ever before. You can send a check to the office or donate through the website in our donations and pledge section. You can also donate through the Give Plus Church app, which can be found on the App Store or Google Play. Please be as generous as you are able. The second reading, Someone Loved by Someone Else by Kat Liu. Be your own worst critic and your own biggest fan. Stephen Curry. Once, while in 6th grade, I brought home a quiz in which I'd gotten the highest score in the class, a 98%. When I proudly handed the paper to my mother, she asked, "Where's the other 2%? Mom believed that by training her children to aim for perfection, we would be more successful. Academically, her strategy worked. Unfortunately, it also resulted in neurotic offspring who tends to dwell on their own failings. Over the years, I've learned that many people share these nagging feelings of constantly falling short. Most of us have also learned to censor our internalized critic in front of others. One day, however, after I'd gotten myself into a serious jam that required a friend to help me out, my inner critic could no longer be contained. I let loose an unrelenting stream of self-reprobation, ignoring Shelley's repeated attempts to assure me things would be okay. Finally, she yelled, "Stop beating up my friend!" Taken aback, I stopped. Then the words sank in and I laughed. Her characteristic outburst and choice of words allowed me to see what otherwise I could not. I saw myself not as myself, but as Shelley's friend, someone loved by somebody else, and realized that I was being harsher on myself than I ever would be to a friend. If a friend were in my situation, I would have genuinely seen their failings as human and focused instead on how to make things better. So why hold someone to an unforgiving standard just because that someone is me? It sounds corny, but in that moment, I finally understood the popular adage that you have to love yourself. So that even when friends aren't there to defend you, you can be your own advocate, friend, and fan. I will always have that voice telling me, you could have done better. That's okay, and maybe even beneficial, so long as it's not the only voice we hear. Occasionally, when the first voice gets to be too much, I stop and I say, "Stop beating up my friend." And it works.
Thanks, Karen. Kat Liu, for those that don't know her, she's a UU lay leader in San Francisco. She's also a sort of a public ethicist for us, does a lot of writing. And my husband and I have started using that same trick too when we're getting too hard on ourselves. We'll say, stop beating up on my husband. And it makes us laugh, and it does sort of get us out of that cycle. I think it's a great gift this time of year for those of us that are wrestling with the blues, to help us maybe get a little bit out of the cycle. Merry Yule and blessed winter solstice, everyone. Lighting our trees, warming our hearth fires, decking our halls could be a sign that gift giving is coming. It can also be the gift itself, the lit pathway to the secret of spirit reborn. A metaphor that maybe our leaves can remain green this winter, and what a glorious gala celebration that could be for our inner kids who might have been long at slumber. Life is about the attentive pauses, not so much about the breaks or the rests or the relief. Those are important too, but not it. Life is about the moments of gratitude, the times of awareness. The world continues spinning. The dancers continue dancing. The cat is still climbing in your face for attention or walking across my Zoom screen, but we're there to appreciate it, though we know not where that place is. Some of us will call it mindfulness, others may call it gratitude. The less spiritually inclined might simply call paying attention. The poet's still point, the lack of motion within every motion. And at Yule, it's a waiting for the moment where the shortest and the longest flip. Allegorically speaking, the story of the birth of Jesus is about this too. The star shines bright in the clear sky. The kings get off their thrones, the wise men gather gifts to bear, the shepherds leave behind their flocks for a short time. Or as we heard in the poem about Yule, the explanation from the author, we see this also in the lighting of the menorah. We see it in other holidays like Diwali. Something great has just occurred. Where did it occur though? In some great exciting place? Were there alarms or sirens or flashing party lights? No, in the hidden recesses of a dirty manger, in the quiet of an evergreen, on the longest night, in the most everyday of places, the birth of hope was to be found. All that is held within the ordinary, the mundane. Only our perception cracks open its meaning. Our appreciation makes all the difference. One bit of advice I give people as we're often planning the winter holidays and holy days can relate to this, especially when the holidays have become the blue season for you. We can really get lost in all the work we do leading up to Christmas party or a fellowship pageant, all the logistical bits, the party, the caterer. This works for weddings too. The decorations, the animal costumes, not at the weddings, the animal costumes, just the pageant. The instrumentalists, the ceremony, the guest lists, and so on. As with all things in life, we can let them drive us crazy, bananas. However, they can also be an intentional way of reminding us that for the short span of time, we should be fully present. We commit all this time, energy, and focus to the planning of a very short event. It's a way of reminding us that the joy, the celebration is worthy of spending the time on it. What happens in the smallest moment of that candle being lit while we're singing Silent Night is that important. And if you didn't catch a reminder for the service on Thursday, Christmas Eve, make sure you have a candle for Silent Night. Personally, I sometimes imagine all that effort is somehow condensed into the moment. All the ritual, you think of Yule, all the rituals that have been done for 5,000 years, bring us in sync with all the peoples of the world for 5,000 years. The still point in the turning world, season after season, generation after generation. And it's those moments between the moments, to now brazenly quote T.S. Eliot, that we can return to for solace, for energy, for inspiration. The pausing is not solely about rest, but about renewal. Anyone who has ever woken up in the morning, has anyone here woken up in the morning? After a full night's rest, sleep, with no will to go to work or school, knows the difference between rest and renewal. I think this is a common reality for all of us. The still point is about coming back to our place of renewal, stopping so that we can start once more with fresh purpose and meaning. Stopping so we can start once more with fresh purpose and meaning. In the holiday season, in Yule, We stop, we celebrate the return of light and the turning of the world, the turning of the seasons. We pause to share time with our families, our friends, or just some quiet time away from the frenetic New York minute. And we begin again. We begin again as our full selves, or as close to our full selves as we can muster. The spiritual work of this season isn't about figuring out how to lose those 10 pounds we gained from the eating over the holidays, although you may want to. It's not about resolutions on how to get control of our lives once more after a month of celebratory abandon, although that might be needed as well. The religious call asks we begin again by doing the work of striving to make the world a more safe, a more just, a more sane place for the migrant in the manger, for those oppressed and seeking a miracle for even more than 8 days and nights, for those that are at their shortest day and their longest night and need to find hope again in the turning of yet another season. If we do that work, the rest will follow. The rest will follow because our priorities will be set. The need for the next thing, the distraction, the party, whatever that thing is, we'll feel we're lacking, and we're feeling we're lacking a lot this year, which in reality is not essential. Some things are, some things aren't. That will sift lower in our values when we set the spiritual work of the season as our essential. The rest will follow when we accept that the distraction or the crippling addiction we feel helpless before, or the petty grievance we keep at our forefront are not essential to who we are. They are what keeps us from ourselves, not what actually defines us. Mystically speaking, the moment in the manger, the moment we realize there's enough lamp oil to illuminate all we could ever dream of, the moment that we celebrate and remember the days will get longer, that the world will continue to spin, the moment we pause to appreciate the holy in our lives, the moment we pause to recognize the powerlessness and the meek for their own work, the moment we stop in awareness of the breath of life, that moment informs all the rest. That moment of stillness gives the dance meaning and makes it possible. Life is not a series of disconnected moments strung together with only meaning we lend it. Life is encountered in the flow between stillness and movement. The renewal is of the spirit rather than the resting of the body. Amen and blessed be. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we're together again. For all those that see God, may God be with us. For those who embrace life, may life return our affections. For those who seek a right path, may a way be found and the courage to take it step by step. For this is the day we are given. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Amen.
Beautiful service. Have a great day, everybody. Hope we'll see you at the fellowship hour following. Just stay right on the Zoom link and we'll connect in just about a minute or less. Have a great day. Bye.